Well, welcome to our Instapot All Day Long Mediterranean series. Today we're going to show you how easy it is to prepare breakfast, lunch, and dinner using this appliance. Now, if you don't have one, don't worry. You don't need to put it on your Christmas list. But if you see how easy it is, you may want to. All of the things that I'm doing today can be done just as easily on the stove, and I'll explain the difference as we go along. But one of the benefits of something like this is that once you can do the sauteing, you can do add pressure, and by just pressing a button you can walk away while the appliance does the cooking. So you don't have to stand there and stir. So what are the benefits of the Mediterranean cooking style? Well, this pattern has been shown to alleviate a lot of chronic disease. And what is different? Lots of vegetables. You're going to see we are showcasing a ton of vegetables, and we're going to sneak them in places that are traditionally thought of as being kind of naughty, like mac and cheese. And so we're going to make these dishes comforting and yet also better for us. So let's get started. Today we're going to make a Middle Eastern brunch dish called shakshuka. And I know you're just going to want to tell everybody that you're making shakshuka because it's fun to say. But what it is basically a tomato and pepper based stew with eggs cooked in them. So we're going to start with our olive oil, as we generally do. I'm going to put just a little bit in there. First, I'm going to turn on my appliance. So I've got it on the saute mode, which heats up pretty quickly. I'm going to throw in about a tablespoon of olive oil. And so the beep lets me know that it's on. And we're going to go with pretty much what's traditional, which is onions, garlic, and we're going to throw in some peppers today and get that started. So I'm going to start with my onion. And remember, we like to use the red onion because of the extra phytonutrients. And so I'm going to throw that in. I think I'm going to make sure that I have a good spoon here to stir with. And this will take a minute to heat up. Once I start noticing it to start simmering, I'll put in my red pepper and my garlic. Now, because it's Middle Eastern, we're using some different spices than we traditionally use. So I'm going to be using cumin. I'm going to be using a smoky paprika that gives it a little bit of that smoky taste. And I'm also going to be using something called harissa. And harissa is optional. You don't need it in order to make it work, but this gives it more of a traditional taste. It's basically peppers and chili, and so it's a little spicy. This is a milder version. You can get this product at Trader Joe's, at Sundex, at some of our local grocery stores. It's not that hard to find, but as I said, it is optional. If you just follow it along without the harissa, you're still going to come up with something delicious. So let's get this thing started. Taking a minute to get going. So, and what I'm going to do also is I'm going to use some garbanzo beans. And that, if you're using the garbanzo beans, this is also going to make it more nutritious because we're getting our legumes. Beans and greens are my favorite two combinations, and we're going to try to use that in most of the things we're preparing today. And if you're vegan or someone in your family is, you can just make it using the garbanzo beans and skip the eggs. If you are an omnivore, like me, you may want them both. And so this gives you an option. Traditionally, shakshuka doesn't have both, and so we're just modifying it a bit to make it even better for us and tasty. So I'm starting to see the Instapot warming up, getting a little bit steamy here. And I'm going to throw in my garlic. Got 2 cloves of garlic that I've minced. And if you recall, if you get fresh garlic and you mince it and let it sit for 10 minutes while you're getting other ingredients prepared, you're going to get more of the phytonutrient allicin, which is very cancer protective. And so the oxygen in the air actually activates this compound. So it's just a little trick that you can use, and fresh garlic is better than the jarred version. So Now I'm going to add a half of a red bell pepper. Get that starting to simmer. And we'll use about a half a teaspoon of cumin. So this is ground cumin. Interestingly, cumin is anti-carminative, so it makes the beans in the dish less gassy. So that's nice to know. And we're going to use a half a teaspoon of smoky paprika. So, get that going. I'm just going to put just a pinch of salt in there and some pepper. Always like some pepper, and because I just thought it might be fun to throw in a little turmeric. Now this is not in your recipe, but it's something you can always do, especially works well in tomato-based dishes, is just to throw in some turmeric with that black pepper, and you're going to get a little more anti-inflammatory power from it. So, whoa. There we go. It's not going to contribute much to the flavor, it's just going to make it better for us. So I'm just going to start to smell it as it's sauteing here. I'm going to let it soften a bit. That's all we're really doing. Then we're going to be adding some marinara sauce. You could add a little bit of fresh tomatoes at that point if you wish. And we'll add our garbanzo beans. That's a little bit of water. Maybe I'll just throw in the garbanzo beans right now. So I'm using about a cup of garbanzo beans. Mostly the cans come with a cup and a half, so use the rest of it for salads if you wish. Put some spaghetti sauce. Now the sauce is about 2.5 cups here, and you don't really have to measure, you're just going to guess. And I am going to thin it with a little bit of water as well. I think I just want to wait a minute before it, so that it gets nice and soft. But this is a really quick dish. It's not that hard. This can be done completely on the stove. And the only reason we're using the pressure cooker is to cook the eggs, and it's very, very quick. But if you like your eggs a little runnier, then you might want to do it on the stove, because you can modify that a little bit better. I'm just going to put about 2.5 cups of good marinara sauce in there, and you want to check your marinara sauces and make sure it doesn't contain a lot of added sugar. This is interesting, as when you start reading labels, you'll see that a half a cup of marinara sauce can have up to 7 grams of sugar in it, which is almost 2 teaspoons, and we don't really need that. So now we're getting it. It's cooking a little bit more. I'm going to put in my harissa. And this one you can add 1 to 2 teaspoons. I'm just going to put in maybe 1.5 teaspoons, because I like it kind of spicy, but not over the top spicy. We'll throw in a little bit of water at this point, just to thin it out, so that because we are going to put our eggs in there pretty soon. We'll make a little well for them. Get that cooking. Starting to hear it bubble. All right, so we've got it simmering nicely. And what I'm going to do is kind of make some little wells and throw in some eggs. And I'm going to, I think I better turn this off while I do that, because it's really cooking. And so I'm going to break an egg. I've got an Eggland's Best egg here, and I'm just going to plop it in place. We'll do this 4 times. We can fit 4 eggs, so if you have, this is great for a family of 4. It's also great for couples, because you can reheat this the next day, so don't be afraid to not put all 4 eggs in. And to get the last one, kind of goes right there. Now we do want to season the eggs just slightly, so I'm just going to put just a bit of salt sprinkled on each one, maybe a little bit of pepper as well. And now we're going to cover it up. This is where we're using the Instapot, really. And going to lock it in place, make sure that the seal is locked, and then we're going to press manual for just 0 minutes. This is really interesting. You press it for 0 minutes. As soon as it comes up to pressure, you're basically going to turn it off. As I said, this is something you can do in a skillet on the stove. It is not that different. So this is one of those things where it's convenient because you can do it all in a pot, easily clean it up, and I could be making toast right now, so that's a good thing to do in the meantime while you're waiting for it to come to pressure. Got it at 0, so now we're going to turn it off, and we're going to try to open it up. I'm going to be very careful using a long pointed object so that we can reduce the pressure, and when the pressure valve drops, we can open it up. We can add kale too before we added the eggs. That's one option, and it will work really well because the kale takes a minute or 2 to cook. Or we can add it at the end, which is what we're going to do today. The other thing is spinach or any kind of green that you have is a good option. And we're going to garnish it with a little bit of feta cheese, which is again optional, and then a little parsley. So we're adding our greens. Basically, we want to make sure we have all of those colors represented. Let's see how we're doing here. All of a sudden this thing will drop. There we go. And we can take a look and see what it looks like. I'm going to put a little bit of greens in here just to kind of simmer them in and pull out the eggs. And so I got, there we go. And whoops, I need a good spoon here. You can see what this looks like. You want to make sure that not only do you have an egg, but you have plenty of sauce. Got lots of, I would normally put this in a larger bowl because it's a pretty hearty brunch. And we're going to put a little bit of cheese on top and just a bit more parsley. Parsley, or you could use cilantro as well. So, and we're going to serve this with some toast or pita bread, and you can see it's a really pretty brunch, very colorful, has lots of flavor, really perfect for fall.